In the spring of 1453, the world stood at the edge of an age. The walls of Constantinople, once the shimmering crown of Christendom, rose like a relic of another world. For over 1,000 years, they had defied armies, storms, and centuries themselves. Behind those massive stones, Emperor Constantine the Meson Palaiologos held the last breath of the Byzantine Empire, a civilization that had once stretched across 3 continents. Before those same walls, the young Sultan Mehmed II, just 21 years old, stood with the might of the Ottoman Empire and the unrelenting conviction of destiny. The confrontation between these two men would mark not only the fall of a city, but the birth of a new world. As dawn broke over the Bosphorus on April 6th, the great Ottoman host appeared, a vast sea of men, banners, and artillery. Witnesses spoke of the earth trembling beneath their feet. Nearly 80,000 soldiers, janissaries, cavalry, engineers, and laborers gathered under Mehmed's standard, while the Byzantines, numbering scarcely 7,000 defenders, waited behind their walls, joined by a few hundred Venetian and Genoese allies. The odds were impossible. Yet, for the people of Constantinople, surrender was not an option. Their city was not just a fortress. It was the symbol of divine endurance, the last refuge of the Eastern Roman world. For centuries, those walls, Theodosian walls, built in the 5th century, had been the city's shield. 3 layers of defenses, rising with towers and moats, had withstood every siege since Attila the Hun. But Mehmed had brought something new to the field: gunpowder, and with it, the cannons of Hungarian engineer Urban, colossal bronze monsters capable of hurling stone balls weighing hundreds of pounds. Their thunder rolled across the plains like the voice of judgment itself. For 47 days, Constantinople trembled under the relentless bombardment. The walls cracked but held. Faith and stone fought together against fire and iron. Inside the city, life oscillated between prayer and terror. Every church echoed with hymns and tears. Every street whispered rumors of miracles and doom. Emperor Constantine moved among his people, not as a distant sovereign, but as a brother in arms. He prayed beside peasants, commanded beside generals, and reminded his citizens that they were the last guardians of a legacy that had begun with Augustus and Constantine the Great. "We stand," he told them, "not for ourselves, but for the memory of our fathers and the hope of our faith." His courage became the city's heartbeat. Outside, Mehmed was no mere conqueror seeking glory. He was a visionary. To him, Constantinople was not only a prize, it was destiny fulfilled, a bridge between worlds, a capital for an empire that would rule both East and West. Night after night, he walked among his soldiers, sharing their meals, speaking of the city as the key to eternity. He studied every inch of its defenses, adjusting strategies, moving artillery, and even having ships dragged overland around the Golden Horn, an act so daring it stunned the defenders. On a single night, under torchlight and silence, dozens of Ottoman ships were pulled across greased logs over the hills of Galata and slipped into the harbor behind the chains that had guarded it for centuries. Constantinople was now surrounded on land and sea. The siege tightened. Food grew scarce, hope thinner still. Each day, the thunder of the great cannon tore more of the walls. Each night, the Byzantines repaired them with rubble and prayer. The sound of hammers in the darkness became the city's heartbeat. Among the defenders stood Giovanni Giustiniani, the Genoese commander whose skill and bravery had given the Byzantines their best chance. But on May 29th, during the final assault, Giustiniani was gravely wounded and carried away. Panic rippled through the ranks. At dawn, as the Ottomans surged forward in wave after wave, Constantine V gathered his remaining men near the gate of St. Romanus. He removed his imperial purple, declaring, "The city is lost, but I live and die for my people." With sword in hand, the last emperor of Byzantium charged into the chaos and was never seen again. As the sun rose that morning, the crescent banner of the Ottomans unfurled above Hagia Sophia. The streets of Constantinople echoed not with hymns, but with the shouts of conquest. Mehmed II rode through the gate of St. Romanus in solemn triumph. He ordered his soldiers to cease looting, dismounted his horse, and walked toward Hagia Sophia, the grand church that had stood for nearly 1,000 years as the heart of Eastern Christianity. Entering its vast, silent dome, he bowed his head and whispered the words of the Quran. The church became a mosque. The city, now Istanbul, became the capital of a new empire. And yet, in that moment, even Mehmed seemed to sense the weight of what had been lost and gained, the death of one civilization and the birth of another. News of the city's fall spread across Europe like thunder. To Christians, it was the end of an age, the final breath of the Roman Empire. To Muslims, it was the fulfillment of prophecy. For scholars and traders, it was the opening of new worlds. Refugees fleeing west carried with them the manuscripts and learning of ancient Greece, fueling the Renaissance that would soon ignite Europe. The fall of Constantinople did not end history, it turned its page. In the centuries that followed, Istanbul became the jewel of the Ottoman world, a city where East met West, where the call to prayer rose beside the whisper of the Bosphorus. Mehmed the Conqueror built schools, mosques, libraries, and markets, transforming conquest into civilization. His vision reshaped the map of the world, yet deep beneath those layers of empire, the ghosts of Byzantium lingered, the echo of bells beneath the domes, the memory of emperors and saints, the whisper of a civilization that refused to vanish. Today, when one stands before the ancient walls of Istanbul, the stones still bear the scars of that siege. They remind us that no empire is eternal, but neither is memory ever lost. The fall of Constantinople remains not merely a tale of conquest, but of transformation, of endings that became beginnings. It is the story of human ambition and faith, of courage in the face of the inevitable, and of the eternal truth that history, like the city itself, never truly dies.